Good morning, students. Today we'll discuss about this standard exceptions. So before going to these exceptions, already we discussed in the last class. What is the exception? Nothing but error. So there are the two types of errors that we have discussed. One is called as syntactic errors, and one is the logical errors. Logical errors also be called as what? Runtime errors. So what is meant by syntax errors? The errors which will be occurred at the time of compilation. Right? It may be follow the reasons. What is that first point? Not following grammatical rules used in declaration of an identifier, and means that nothing but undefined variable. Simple in our understanding, you can say as what? Undefined variable, right? So not following the grammatical rules used in declaration of identifier. And what the second one? Not declaring an identifier used in program. So the variable which is defined, which is not used in our program. So next one, semicolon, not terminating statement by using semicolon, and then not providing equal number of opening and closing braces, right? Opening and closing brackets mismatch, otherwise misplaced else statement, unterminated string, nothing but using semicolon or single quotations, right? Opening and closing parentheses. These all are come under what? Syntactical errors. The errors can be reflected by the user. It is displayed by compiling the program. So whenever you are compiling the program, the error will be occurred. Then that is called as compile time errors. So what is meant by logical errors? Logical errors are also be called as what? Runtime errors. So these errors won't be displayed on the screen. However, it will lead to display wrong results. Example, an infinity loop. This error lead abnormal termination of program or infinity loop. The loop will be continued. There is no ending. Okay. So that type of errors are called as what? Logical errors. What are the runtime errors? The errors which will be occurs while running a program. So while running a program, the error will be occurred. Then those are called as what? Runtime errors. What type of errors are there? Division by zero, stack overflow, underflow. Okay, so these type of the errors are called as what? Runtime errors. Okay, so there are the different types of the errors, and in this we are having some C++ provides some standard exceptions. So what are the standard exceptions? C++ provides a list of standard exceptions defined in exception.h. Exception.h, which we can use in our programs. These are arranged in a parent and child class hierarchy shown below. How it is parent and child? That is what? Standard exception is the first one. Then in this one we are having the different type of the things. Standard bad allocation, standard bad casting, standard bad type definition, standard bad exception, standard logic failure. In this one we are having domain error, invalid argument, length error, out of range, runtime error, stack overflow, underflow. So the other different type of the exception. Now we'll see what are the errors, what are the meaning of this hierarchy. Standard exception, an exception and parent class of all standard C++ exceptions. What are the exceptions that all will be worked with a standard exception. Okay, the next one is standard bad allocation. This can be thrown by new operator. This can be thrown by new operator, right? So the bad allocation memory, whenever you are working with a dynamic memory allocation, in the last class we discussed about dynamic memory allocation. This will be done with the new and delete operations. So by the new and delete operations, we'll go, suppose any allocation is there, because we are having calloc, malloc and realloc, memory allocation, right? Reallocation and deleting allocation. So that for the allocations will become with a new operator. Next one is what? Bad cast. So this can be thrown by dynamic casting, conversion of one data type into another data type, or one class into another class. At that time we will get this bad cast. Then a bad exception. This is useful device to handle unexpected exceptions in C++ program. Any unexpected error is there, any software problem occur, then we can go with this what? Bad exceptions. Next one is what? Standard bad typed. This can be thrown by type definition, right? So we already having this word in the C language, type definition and size of. So type definition, defining a new term for the existing data type, that we can get. At the time we will throw this error. Then logic error, an exception that theoretically can be detected by reading the code. Right? While reading the code, we'll get the error. Logically, syntactically the error is correct, but logically the error is having the problem that will be occurred whenever we are reading the code. At that moment, this error will be occurred. Next one is standard domain error. This is an exception thrown when mathematically invalid domain is used. Right? So any problems occurred, mathematical problems, any occurred, domains will be occurred. At that moment, we'll go with this one. That's called as what? Domain error. Then next one is what? Standard invalid argument. This is thrown due to invalid arguments. So what are the invalid arguments? Suppose I written like this. Example, I written as what? Void some function 1 of, I written as integer x comma integer y. Okay, so but while passing the information, I written as what? I written function 1 of 10 comma 11.23. Now what is the problem? Here the two receivers are what? Integer type, but we are passing, one is integer and one is the float, right? Then this type of the errors will be occurred. Those are called as what? Invalid arguments, right? So this is thrown due to invalid arguments. Means what? One type to another type we are passing. Suppose you declared as an integer, but we are passing some other type. It may be character, it may be double, it may be float, not to integer. Then this error will be occurred. Then length error. This is thrown when too big standard string is created. The string length will be increased. Then this type of the error will become. So okay, standard out of range. This can be thrown by the at method. By example, standard vector of standard bit set operator. So there is a concept is called as a vector, or just like as arrays only, this vectors will be work. So vectors nothing but it can be used for any type of the information. It may be integer, it may be character, it may be float, double. But suppose if you are going with the arrays, arrays can be stored same type of information, but group of elements having a common name. Okay, so whenever the group of elements are belonging to same type, but vectors that can any type will be stored. It acts as a arrays only, but not called as arrays. Arrays means what? Arrays can be stored same set of elements. Suppose you declared as an array for integer, means that can store only integer type. If you declared a array type for float, means it can be used only for array type of variable. But in the vectors, that not be for only one particular data type. It can be stored any type of information. So if that type of the errors has been occurred, then this error will be displayed. Then standard runtime error, an exception that theoretically cannot be detected by the reading the code, right? So the exception theoretically cannot be detected, the error will not be detected. Then at the time of, then we can get this error, runtime error. Overflow, this is thrown a mathematical overflow occurs. Stack overflows, stack underflows. Overflows nothing but suppose in the stack I given as only 5 elements, but I am giving the values. Then we'll get as a stack overflow. Means what? I given the size as a 5, but I am giving more than 5. Not be possible to store. So at that moment it will come as what? Stack overflow. What is the stack underflow error? If suppose the stack is empty, but still we are trying to read that information, then that is called as stack underflow, because there is no elements in the stack, so that it shows the error as a stack underflow. The next one is range error. What is the range error? This is occurred when you try to store a value which is out of range. The range will be different. Then the type of the error will come as what? The standard range error. Right? And the underflow already discussed. This is thrown a mathematical underflow occurs. Right? So these are the 14 types of errors that we'll use. One is standard exception, then bad casting, bad allocation, typed exception, logic failures, domain error, invalid argument, length error, out of range, runtime errors, and on this one runtime errors we are having stack overflow, range error, and underflow. Okay, so these are the different type of standard exceptions we'll use in C++. So, and another type of the question we can ask in the final examination, how to throw our own exception or how to define a new exception. How to throw user defined exceptions, or we can write like this one, or how to throw user defined exception. How to throw user defined exception or define new exception. How to throw user defined exception or how to throw new exception. A new exception, you can define our own exception by inheriting and overriding exception class functionality. Following this example shows how can you use standard exception class. So see, observe to write hash include iostream.h hash include exception. Okay. Right. So hash include iostream, I will hash include exception.h struct my exception colon public exception. We are getting this information from the exception constant character what constant throw return C++ exception. So for your clarity, I'm making as a individual lines. Okay. Then constant character what constant. Constant is the keyword. Cat data type what constant throw throwing our own exception return C++ exception. Integer main try throw my exception. So my exception is the class method name that I am going to this one. Okay. Then catch my exception ampersand of e. Finding the memory location for this exception. That exception my exception caught standard end line. Standard cout e dot what standard end line. Catch standard exception ampersand of e. So catching our own exceptions. Okay, how to write? See, observe integer main try throw my exception. Throw means what? It directly throws the our own exception. How to throw? It moves to this place where struct my exception public constant character constant throw C++ exception. So then that exception will be thrown to the catch block. Catch block will catch and then print the my exception caught e dot what and e dot end line. Okay. So any other service that will become by using this one. And this is the example for throwing our own exception. Just do the practice for this. Okay. So do the practice throwing our own exception. Throwing our own exception. Right. I have to write hash include iostream.h hash include exception.h is a parent class. Struct my exception colon public exception. Then open bracket constant char memory location pointer what constant throw return C++ exception. Close the bracket and close it. This one, right? And this is the closing of this one. And this is up to this, right? Integer main try block and throw my exception catch my exception. Whatever the exception we throw that will be catched by my exception ampersand of e. Ampersand of e standard cout my exception caught standard end line making of line. Then after that we'll go with the standard cout printing the cout statement e dot what means the function will be execute. That function what is that C++ exception you will get here. Then any exceptions other exceptions are there that will go multiple catch statement. Multiple catch statements you can write. Otherwise single line only this is enough. So no need to go with this next catch block. Okay, and this is also not required. We can delete it. right? So this is the program for throwing our own exception. Why? Because there's a chance to ask for how to throw our own exception, or how to throw user-defined exceptions, or how to throw a new exception and standard exceptions in C++. Okay, do the practice about this all things. But that bad allocation, bad cast, type bad, bad exception, domain error, invalid argument, length error, out of range, stack overflow, range error, and underflow. Okay,